everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Etcetera on the Vibe Live. I'm your host, Kelly Barrett. Super excited for today's guest, back for her second performance. The lovely and talented Lee Aaron is in the house with us today. Lee, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Kelly?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for coming back.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, it was an opportunity to talk about the new album, and it seems like your show is really taking off since we spoke last. You're like speaking to all the Canadian rock stars. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's doing great. I'm loving it. I'm appreciative for the support and the people that tune in, and super grateful that mega rock stars like yourself want to come on my little show, and it's just a good time, and it definitely got a lot of people, myself included, through the COVID. It kept us in touch.
Absolutely.
Artists. It gave me a reason to get out of bed in the day.
We need this for sure.
We sure do. So a lot has changed since you were here, Lee. You were here back in March, and that was the release of your new album, Radio On. And so things are changing. Things are moving now. What's happening for you lately?
Well, the new album came out, obviously. So that's a beautiful thing. The upside of that was that it obviously our fans love connecting. And I've seen so many wonderful pictures on Facebook of people displaying their album. The downside was that it sold out right away. So I don't know if you know that my label, they pressed as many records as they figured I would sell on the last two albums. Like my label out of Germany put out Power Soul Rock and Roll Live in Germany, which sold extremely well. And they also put out Diamond Baby, and we went with them again because they are a label of huge, wonderful music fans, and they just loved the Radio On. Obviously, you want your label to be a big fan of your music, right?
For sure.
And so they pressed as many copies as they thought we would sell. And in pre-sales, we sold out instantly. The vinyl sold out instantly. So we had a bit of a supply problem right around the release date because people are like, yeah, we want to buy the vinyl, and we couldn't. It's actually being repressed right now. So just for all you folks out there who want the new Radio On album, just be patient. It is coming. They're repressing CDs and they're repressing vinyl right now. So, I mean, these are good problems to have, right?
First world problems, for sure.
I know, and so we've started to do some live work, which is very, very exciting. We were just doing our first show a few days ago. We flew to Newfoundland, and it was a festival turned private function because of the capacity requirements. But we got to play with our buddies Honeymoon Suite. And what ended up happening is the gentleman had sort of set a dressing room specs to our sound guy who advanced the show. And then we got there, and he ended up with more friends coming than he thought. So we had to designate some of those rooms to his buddies. So we ended up there, and we're like, whoa, we're sharing a dressing room. And we're like, not that we can't do that, but you kind of, I'm a woman, I was there with 12 guys, and I'm like, I would like some privacy. And so anyway, to make the story short, they had a separate bedroom designated for me to be able to change and everything. But so we had to reconcile the fact, okay, me and Derry and Johnny and all the guys that were like, okay, I guess we're sharing a dressing room tonight, guys. But, I got to tell you, in the end, it was really kind of fun and fantastic because it made for a really interesting evening. We were all taking turns rehearsing in the dressing room and, figuring out, okay, whose deli tray? Okay, that must be your deli tray because there's ham on it. And that must be your deli tray because there's this on it. We were trying to figure out whose things were whose. So it ended up making quite a fun evening. I think not having performed in 18 months, and it was our first show, their second show. So it ended up being a little bit of a big blowout at the end of the night, but a much needed one. They even gave us a party bus to go back to our hotel on, because the venue was an hour and a half from the hotel. So it was really, really a fun evening. And we just talked about lots of things, the new recordings we all have in the works, producers, and Johnny's flying to England to do his vocals. So it was a really, really fun night. It was super fun.
It sounds like a fun experience. It sounds a little bit like camping. And did you dominate the bathroom?
Pardon me?
Did we all woman, right? I would have been like, men, the bathroom is mine.
Well, no, I'd go, okay, guys, I'm going in there to change now. So I'm locking the door, just so you know, you're locked out of here for the next 20 minutes while I get ready. Right. So
Sure.
everybody was very respectful of
Nice.
everyone's space, and it all ended up working out really, really well in the end. Yeah.
And so what was the audience like? I would imagine it must have just been mayhem, because for a lot of people that would have been their first live show that they had been to in a year and a half. So it must have just been insane.
It was an audience of about 250 people. It wasn't a huge audience. Now Newfoundland is they hardly have any COVID cases, so they were kind of jammed up at the front of the stage like sardines. And
Right.
we to go to the East Coast bubble. And to get onto the island of Newfoundland, you have to do required documents before you get there. If you're not doubly vaccinated, you are required to quarantine. So we are all, of course, doubly vaccinated. So the truth is, it was actually a bit relaxed. It was almost normal because, again, like they have such a low percentage of cases in Newfoundland, everyone felt really, really safe. And of course, every precaution was being taken on stage in terms of sanitizing microphones and all that stuff. So it actually felt fairly relaxed and fairly normal. So it was a beautiful thing.
So, and I'm just wondering, Lee, what was it like performing in front of even just a small crowd like that? Was it just pure excitement, or was there any sort of nervousness? It had been a while since you'd been on a stage like that. What was that like? That when that first song kicks in, and what was that like?
Well, luckily, like I said, we had space to rehearse. They had around the corner from the dressing room was like a helicopter hangar. So that's where we were able to go and jam a little bit, and the honeymoon guys as well. So we were quite well rehearsed. So it was kind of like the first couple songs, it was like, oh, what are we doing? And then by about the third song, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like riding a bike again, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like back in the saddle. So it was really, it was fun. It was very, very exciting. So it really wasn't that nerve wracking. It was actually very, very exciting. And I got to tell you, despite the fact that it was a smaller audience because of the requirements there, the production was like top notch, state of the art. I don't think I'd had monitors that sounded that good in a couple of years. So it was really wonderful. Yeah.
Nice. And so do you have any upcoming dates, like in the near future?
I do. So right now we have a potential back on the East Coast on September 25th. I'm coming to Edmonton on the 29th of October to play the Century Casino. And I'm coming to Calgary on October 30th to do a Halloween show at the Deerfoot Casino. So that's very, very exciting. Coming to your hood.
That I was just going to say, you're in my neighborhood, girl. I'm going to grab some tickets and drag some friends out there. That'd be great.
Oh, I'm so excited. Now, fingers crossed that the Delta variant doesn't shut everyone down. I mean, there's always that possibility. I know it's happened in a few places, but provided we are not stupid and we behave like good Canadians, right. I'm hoping that all these shows are going to actually happen, right? We need this. We really need this. It was just the feeling of love. And I got to tell you, not just between us and the audience, but just, I got to tell you, the appreciation and love between bandmates. Like, we were like hugging the guys and we're like, oh, we missed you guys, the guys in the honeymoon suite. Like, there's a real respect and a real love and a real camaraderie between all of us bands that have been doing this 30 plus years, that are still on the circuit, that we're still, we love our, it's just like I said, we love each other's music and each other's musicianship. And there's just such a mutual love and respect there. That was just so great,
Right.
So,
and I think, I'm always tempted to say, Lee, that's such a Canadian thing, but I don't necessarily think that anymore. I think it's just, the caliber of musicians that are in Canada, and just the nature of, there's that sense of support instead of a competitive dog eat dog world, which I think kind of existed years ago. But do you think the COVID kind of amplified that, that sense of just camaraderie and support? Like, do you think that COVID had some positive effects as far as, just the way we view life and the importance of hugging another, like you said, just hugging each other, just being in the same room as humans? Like, I know for myself, it's really shifted the way what's important to me. And I'm wondering if that happened for you. Really big things used to be on my bucket list. And over the past year, it's been, God, I just want to have dinner with people I love. And I just want to cook food for people I love and hug them. And do you find that's true for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have to say my worldview shifted significantly after having children. That was my first big worldview shift because you're when your kids are little, your life does get small. It is a little bit like quarantining with little people that poop all the time, and want you to make them peanut butter sandwiches, so it's true. So your life does shift when you have children, but further to that, of course, having lockdown, our children were teenagers, the time of their life where they're supposed to be out getting into trouble and taking risks and having
Right.
fun. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And I think I have to tell you myself personally, I've never had a real competitive type of spirit. I've always felt that my brand of rock and roll is different than Darby's brand of rock and roll, or different than Sass's brand of rock and roll, or different than Honeymoon Sweet's brand of rock and roll. And that there's room for everybody to be their own unique selves. That's the way that's always been my attitude. But I know that pre-COVID, there were a lot of bands that were like, oh man, those guys got that gig and that festival, and we didn't get that festival. And there was a bit of competitive because let's be honest, there's only so many festivals. And then there's a lot of bands and only so many people can play those gigs every year.
Right.
So sure, I think for a lot of bands, there was a competitive attitude. And now I know that, again, like hanging out with our buddies for the first time, it was just real, like, it wasn't like, oh man, like who's going to open up or who's going to close the show. It's like, no, it's a double bill. We have mutual respect and love for each other. We're both sharing production. We're sharing a dressing room tonight, and it's like we have a gig. We have a gig. We need to play. That
in
was
front of people.
Like, we are grateful. We have work. We have work. We get to hang out and be musicians and talk music together. What a blessing! And I have always felt like that, but I think that there's even more of that feeling now. Absolutely. Again, mutual love and respect. And interestingly enough, I just did I'm sorry if you're here. There's so many birds in my yard right now, and they're fighting over a bird feeder. I don't know if you can hear them.
That's because you're giving them water now.
I know they're squawking like crazy in the backyard. Anyway, to make a long story short, I just a couple of days ago, I think if you Google Lierre and Toronto Star, there was an article in the Toronto Star with me, and I was talking exactly about that fact that, years ago in the 80s, the media even perpetuated that a bit, especially with the female artists, like that we were kind of like catty and, working against each other for shows, or we were competitive. And I have just never felt that way. Especially in the field of rock, holy moly, like we have to have each other's backs. Right. There needs to be a sisterhood, like if, a sisterhood of rock and roll, because, we battled against so many obstacles, sexism being a big one in the 80s, especially, and the early 90s, that we need to have each other's backs. We need to support each other. We need to lift each other up. We need to share in each other's joy. There's room for everybody.
I agree. And I love what you just said, Lee, because I've always said the sunshine is for everyone. And I love that mentality of, there's room for you, and there's room for Darby, and there's room for Sass, and collectively it makes this amazing Canadian music scene, and everybody independently creates this whole that just makes it amazing. And speaking of the media, and I hate to go back to this, but I have a point to this. Because I want to let this be known, back, the media really, when you came out with Metal Queen, which is, of course, is what launched you into the stratosphere, the media really tried to portray you as this, I was reading on your bio, this Jägermeister slam and rock and roll metal queen. And really the truth about that, and I found this interesting, getting back to the sisterhood, the song was actually about, female empowerment and positive energy and female strength and wisdom. It was not about being a crazy Jägermeister shooting metal queen. And the media kind of would not let that go.
Well, and yeah, And so the wonderful thing about the last few years and with the, the Harvey Weinstein and the Me Too movement is I've been able to not only reclaim the title in a positive way, but explain to people that the narrative was definitely different than what they thought. What happened is that album and that song came out in an era and a culture in which women were very, very objectified in the hard rock scene and the media. And so that song came out, and every 14-year-old boy out there was just like, oh, Leanne, she's my metal queen. She's my rock goddess. It's like I somehow that got co-opted to becoming a pinup girl. And I was like, that wasn't the message. That wasn't what the intention was. Right. I had already been through that in my life, in my career. And when I wrote Metal Queen, she holds a power like no other man, Metal Queen, takes control. What do you think it's about? It's about us taking back our power as women, about us claiming the matriarchy, about us being able to, have us be on a stage of equality. That's exactly what that song was about. And it was very disheartening. Like, I was very upset for a while. I wouldn't play it for a while in the 90s because I was like, no, not playing that song. This is not, until the narrative changes. And so the nice thing is now the narrative has shifted dramatically, and people are able to go back and listen to that song and go, oh yeah, that's what it was about.
That's what it was about.
And Unidisc, who owns all my Attic Masters, and but I'm working with them in partnership now on that. They re-released Metal Queen for Record Store Day this year on hot pink vinyl. I don't know if you're aware of it.
It's beautiful.
So what could be a more feminist message than that? There you go. So
that's like the opposite of Jägermeister drinking rock and roll chick. The Pink album.
Exactly.
I saw that a couple weeks ago. And I love that message. And, I guess I can understand the 14-year-old boys, they see the fur. And I saw Warrior. When I look at that, when I think of that album cover, I think female power and Warrior. But I think then was the jazz album kind of a lead from that? Was that an attempt to to say, hey guys, that's not what I am. And I'm more than just this metal queen. What was the inspiration for the jazz album, Lee?
That's a great question, Kelly, and I'm glad you're asking it. It's people have asked me that a few times. It was the whole jazz phase was born from a few things. Everybody who was associated with corporate rock or hard rock of the 80s, their career basically ended in the 90s, in the early 90s, because, grunge was the thing. And, once Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Green Day, the Pixies, Frank Black, Veruca Salt. I'm just trying to think of some of the other acts that, the Breeders, all of these, Sonic Youth, like all of these bands gained popularity and it became the Seattle scene. You couldn't get arrested. The media didn't want anything to do with you. So I put out a couple of albums in the 90s, Emotional Rain and the Too Precious album that I wrote and recorded with Sons of Freedom, which, by the way, Emotional Rain, Reeves Gabrels from David Bowie's Tin Machine played on, and Knox Chandler from the Psychedelic Furs. I was trying to realign myself for the 90s because when that happened, I was still in my late 20s. I was like, what? My career's over? What's going on? I feel like I had barely had my 5 minutes. And but it was very, very difficult. So I had to declare corporate bankruptcy in 1996. And I took a year off. I was depressed, and I went back and I listened to all my, Billie Holiday albums, my Sarah Vaughan albums, my, Lambert, Hendricks and Ross, Nina Simone. And when I decided to come back and sing again, I had no inclination and no desire whatsoever to get back, to jump on the corporate bandwagon again. Why was I going to try to compete with other pop artists that were 20? It just didn't seem like it was a good idea. And so I started singing jazz in small clubs around the city. So it was born out of, financial and emotional ruin, number one, really.
I love the honesty. I love the honesty.
Yeah, well, was what it was, and I'm not the only artist that went through this. The
Right.
good news about that is it's always, you know, to hit rock bottom. I mean, it wasn't like obviously an addiction thing. It was, again, financial, emotional kind of bottoming out
Right.
was actually a good thing because it made me rebuild. I was like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do something. I am going to make an artistic diversion that's going to, you know, surprise everybody because you know what? I am first and foremost an artist and I have the capability. I can do this. And the other
Right.
thing that was great that came out of that is I was like, had no money to make records. I better get my own Pro Tool unit and figure out what I'm
Right.
doing here in terms of recording. And so I started recording myself again. I had learned how to use tape machines and stuff when I was very young in my very first high school band. I was recording myself on an 8-track TIAC and I knew recording
Right.
technology. But with the big budgets of the 80s and big producers, I didn't have to do that. Everybody did those things for me. And it was sort of like, hey, I guess I'm going to learn recording technology again. So that was a great thing because then with knowledge, there's power. And then I was able to, from Slick Chick onward, I've been producing and recording my own albums, my own way. And so that was a great thing that came out of that. Yeah. And
Right.
so
I thought
I
the
think,
jazz was brilliant, and I love that, like that you've experimented with so many different genres, and we get to see so many sides of you. And I was reading a quote from the Globe and Mail regarding the jazz, and it says Lee Aaron has pulled off one of the biggest musical transformations. While it may be hard for some to believe that she could tread so confidently in so many jazzy subgenres, the fact is she did, and that was the Globe and Mail. And I thought that's so eloquently put because it's like, I mean, to go from metal to jazz. And one of my favorite songs of yours is What You Do to My Body, because it was just such, for me, it was such a leap from the metal clean. And it was, it was very timely in that, when it came out, and it was fun, and it was, I
fresh.
really feel like, yeah, I really felt like in that video we got to know who Lee was. And I mentioned this in the last interview where, you have this approachability that I think just makes you appealing to men and women. And it really showed through for me in that video because, you're being the sexy kind of girl next door, vixeny still, but you're approachable and you're smiling and you don't have that cold, rock bitch thing. And I think it makes the women, drawn to you. Like I would have lunch with this woman, and you have that type of approachability. You really do. And not every female artist does.
I love that. The vixen next door. I've never heard it put that way. That's hysterical. well, um, I mean, I really don't know what to say other than, yeah, I mean, I feel like on the Body Rock album, we definitely hit a stride with our songwriting, myself and John. And while Body Rock had big, nasty guitars, it also had a ton of pop sensibility, great melodies.
Yeah.
And what I can say about that is I'm always striving to write the best song I can write. And that means melody. And that means people are tapping their foot and singing along. That's the testament of wonderful songwriting,
Right.
So, and I'm still striving for that. And I mean, you can see on my new videos as well with Come On and Vampin' that, again, there's definitely an element of fun there. I'll tell you a funny story. We were playing, and I've never talked about this, we were playing Cannes Music Festival in 1991. We were showcasing there. And there were a bunch of different bands there. And I believe was Triumph there? I don't know. I know Rick Emmett was there. And I remember him being side stage when we were performing for this audience of record moguls. And it was a little bit nerve-wracking, right? But it was on the Some Girls Do album when I kind of went a little more in a Madonna-ish direction with the bustiers and the stuff. But we went on and we showcased Some Girls Do, Sex with Love, and I think a couple of other tunes. And I came off stage and he came up to me and he said, because he had performed on my first album, singing, co-production on a couple of the tunes, and also playing guitar. And he said, I finally really, really get it. I get what the Lee Aaron thing is now. And I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, it's rock and roll, but it's campy and it's fun. Yeah. It's meant to be. It's not, you don't take yourself all that seriously, like I am, rock till you die. No, that is not me. It's like it's more of a, a Rolling Stonesy kind of like fun vibe to it.
Right.
Like
I think
we're just a fun. Well, go ahead.
I think campy is a great word to describe it, because that makes me think of the song off your 14th album, Come On. What a fun, light song. And Def Campy is the word that suits it. And Come On doesn't refer to as in come on, let's go. It refers to like coming on to somebody, but it's, it's put across in such a playful way. If I come on to you, will you come on to me? And I love it. And 21 off your new album, I was obsessed with that song this week. It is just hauntingly beautiful. And I love that you play the piano. How many instruments do you play? Guitar, piano?
Well, yeah, guitar and piano,
And
keyboards.
vocals, like that's amazing.
Keyboards depends on what sample I pick. And
right.
yeah, I'm not. And I have to preface this by saying I sure don't consider myself any kind of maestro on guitar. I play enough to write a song.
Right.
I leave the technical stuff up to Sean Kelly. He's a maestro. But yeah, I've played keyboards since I was a teenager. I took a few years of piano, and again, while I'm not John Lord, but I write on piano quite frequently. And I had written 21 on piano, and when it came to recording, because the last two albums that I had done, I hired John Webster to play keyboards because he's played on all those wonderful big albums back in the 80s, and he is the maestro. But the guys in my band were, they were like, you wrote it on piano, you should probably just play it, keep it simple and beautiful. And I was like, okay. And so that was the approach. And I think it translated really well.
It sure did. It's beautiful. It's poignant. And I love the fact that it's, what a beautiful tribute to our younger years. When you sing I Remember 21, and truthfully, I listened to it probably 4 or 5 times this week, and it made my eyes leak almost every time, but not in a sad way, in kind of a bittersweet, a tribute to remembering our youth and remembering being 21 and, getting
feeling nostalgic, but also reflecting on how much we've lived through and how far we've come. Right. As humans, right? Like we're all prodigal sisters and prodigal sons, like we've lived through a lot, and here we are. And in my mind, I'm still there.
I'm still 25 in my head, so.
Yeah.
And so what does your writing process look like for you? Like, this is your 14th album, and you're re-releasing a Christmas album, so that'll be your 15th album. You have another album coming out. I love that you just don't stop. I love that you keep, you keep challenging yourself, and you keep experimenting with different genres, and you surprise us. And what is your writing process? Does it start with a theme or an idea, or is it just maybe a place that you are in life that you want to project to your fans through your music?
Well, that's a great question, and I can tell you that I've written hundreds of songs in my life, and that I can still tell you I have no clue. I have no clue. Honestly, it's every song comes together in a slightly different way. Like 21, I had just written in my songbook the number 21. I want to write a song about remembering being young, but reflecting on how far we've come. Right. And that was just a concept for me before I sat down at the piano. Vampin' off the new album, we got into a rehearsal space together. Sean Kelly played that badass lick, that and I was like, ooh, that's kind of complicated. How am I going to write lyrics over that? Let's play it again. Let's play more. Ooh, how about we keep the chorus simple? And then we jammed it. And then the next thing you know, I was like, oh, I have this idea that I wrote in my book about Hell Yeah, Baby's Vampin'. I wrote it when I was on vacation because I'm always looking for female empowerment ideas. And it fit perfectly with his cool riff idea. So that was the way that song came together. Mama Don't Remember was just a cool bass line that Dave Reimer brought into our rehearsals. And as I mentioned to you before, yes, Radio On is out. It's out now. For people that don't know, we have a brand new album out now. If you go to leeaaron.com, there's a bunch of links links to buy it. You can also listen to it on Spotify. But we are next week going into pre-production for another new album, because we've written, prior to being able to go out and do live shows, we wrote a whole bunch of other new songs. So
right. So you used your COVID time wisely.
Yeah, but those demos, I just sent the guys last night a Dropbox folder full of demos. Now those demos range from me on a piano singing and playing, me on a guitar literally with one finger playing a few notes and singing this other idea, me doing some drum loop, taking pieces of ideas they sent me, chopping them up and pasting them over a drum loop and writing lyrics over top of that. So there's like this whole mishmash of weird demos that we did for this album that are pieced together in different ways. But the reason that I like the fact that they are not completely visualized yet, they've got rough vocals and verse and chorus ideas. The reason that I love the fact that they're kind of a mishmash of weird demos is because we're going to get together in a room for pre-production, and that way nothing is over rehearsed, and I'm inviting full creativity when we get together in a room, and I know they're going to take on a completely different life and shape when we get together, and that's the process for the next record. So
wow, it just never stops. And you're going to re-release your Christmas album that I believe came out last year. Is that correct?
So yeah, one of the crazy ideas we had in September of last year was, let's make a Christmas record, because for no other reason than we wanted a project and we wanted to do something joyful that would make our fans happy. So we released it, recorded it and released it independently last year as an indie release, just sold from our website. This year, Metalville, my album out of Germany, picked it up for global release, and it's coming out this fall as a re-release with a new cover and 2 new original songs that we wrote for it as well. So that's exciting.
Right. And is it a different process writing Christmas type music?
In February? Yeah. We were like, okay. But we thankfully, all of us in the band are kind of nerdy. We all love Christmas. We just love Christmas. So we're like, okay, let's put on our Christmas hats and think Christmas. And so we started writing Christmas songs in like January, February of last year. And we nailed a couple. So I'm very excited about the new Christmas songs. One is called we decided, let's write a song called Almost Christmas, because that is the album title.
Yeah.
And so we wrote this lovely, jangly, beautiful Christmas song called Almost Christmas, all about not being able to wait to be with your loved ones at Christmas. Can't wait till it's almost Christmas. And another song called More Fun on the Naughty List. So I'll just let you venture a guess what that's about.
I love it because I too love Christmas, and I remember Christmas music used to just be almost depressing. Like it was, it was a little bit tedious. And so when my favorite rock stars come out with Christmas albums, I just absolutely love it. I love it because
it is a really fun album. It has a couple of standards that you probably like, Baby Please Come Home and Run Run Rudolph. Right. But we found a bunch of really cool rock and roll Christmas songs that have never been covered before. Like we covered an Eels song called Everything's Gonna Be Cool This Christmas.
Right.
And Pet Shop Boys song called It Doesn't Often Snow at Christmas.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, we found some really cool tracks.
Sounds like a fun album. And when will that be released, Lee?
So I actually don't have the exact release date, but I think it's coming in October.
Nice. Just in time for the holidays. And
yeah,
I was thinking as you were describing some of the titles, those titles are going to be even more relevant this year, because people will be able to go home and see their family, and people will be able to celebrate Christmas. And, how amazing is that? We have a comment here from Anthony Carrier, and you can read it on the screen there. He says, "Holy geez, Lee Aaron, you rocked my world when I was a teenager, and you're still rocking it today. Babe status then and now." Thanks, Anthony, for that comment.
Thank you.
And so the album that you were just speaking about, the next album that's coming, do you have any idea when the release date on that is, Lee?
I don't. It'll be, there's quite a few things in the works for next year. There's a new album, obviously. And I've been working on a book. I think I mentioned that to you last time I was talking to you.
Right.
It's been on a slight bit of hold because I've been getting organized to record another new album. But I've been working on my memoirs, and it's a goal to get it out by next Christmas. Really keeping my fingers crossed that that can happen, as well as another Lear and Ultimate collection, which will be a combination of the best of my Attic years and the best of my Nouveau years, which is sort of post from the mid 2015 onward, releasing those albums. So yeah, so I'm very excited about that.
Just lots on the go. I love that you there was probably a time, Lee, and we were discussing this before the show, when you had your children fairly close together, and I would imagine had to take quite a bit of a hiatus, from the touring and recording. And so,
Yeah.
and so how, has becoming a mother, has it changed you in any way? I mean, aside from the obvious, but I mean, as far as, maybe your outlook on music or your writing process or your song content, how has that shifted over the years, going through, raising two teenage kids and just evolving? How has it shifted for you?
Well, I think about the legacy that I want to leave my children,
Right.
right? And I think and that's a lot of the reason for writing a book is, let's be honest, I had an awkward start, to say the least, coming up in an era when I was a teenage girl. And again, I was sort of, I'm not I'm not victim-y, like it's not my mentality, but
Right.
I had to walk through some circumstances in my life that were challenging when I was young. The sexualized marketing and all that stuff. I definitely we all partied a little too much when we were young. And, I'm the first person to admit I have a bit of an addictive personality. Luckily, I channel it into music.
Right. Yes.
Making lots of music rather than things that are going to destroy my body. But
Destructive. Yeah.
we stumbled through awkward years. And so I guess part of the reason for writing a book is, someday I want my children to go back and go, rather than hearing hearsay or hearing what people say on the internet or social media, I want them to know that this is my real story.
Right.
This is what really happened. And this is what my feelings were around these circumstances and these things. And this is what I had to walk through as a child. A lot of people don't know, most people don't know anything about my childhood, but all of those circumstances shaped me into the person that I became and the artist that I became and the music that informed the music that I make. Right. And so I kind of want them to know that story. And some of the other things that are informing my trajectory in life. I lost my mom 4 years ago to cancer, and she was very young and vibrant, and it just didn't feel right. My brother-in-law, my sister's I only have one sister. Her husband died suddenly in his mid-50s, quite young, from something that we never expected. It was like a virus, a cold virus, flu virus that attacked his heart, and he died suddenly on a business trip, which she was. I have lost two of my best friends in my life in the last decade to cancer and, again, a heart thing. Didn't expect them to leave the world so soon. And I think when you've just experienced some tragedy in your life, we lost someone who was in the Lee Aaron fold previously to COVID. That was when it really touched me personally. And I was like, wow, it
became real.
It became very real. It was basically, I got a phone call. I didn't even know this person was sick. I got a phone call from one of my very good friends in Toronto that said, they're taking our buddy so-and-so off a ventilator tonight. I was like, what? So I didn't even know this person was sick. So it was very, very close to home. And it's really made me rethink things. Like, I feel like none of us know how much time we have. How much time do we have? We don't know. So I feel like I have a lot that I want to do, and I don't know how much time I have to do it. So I better do it now.
Great, absolutely. And what, Lee, with just everything that you were just describing, and I can't wait for the book, the memoirs to come out. What a powerful message to leave, as you said, a legacy to your children. And I'm thinking, especially your daughter, back to that empowerment thing, to show that we can face adversity and we can triumph and we can move ahead and we can come out above. And I think sometimes tragedy, if we have to take some good from it, it's that life really is short and we really don't know how long we have. And I think if anything, the last year really taught us that this is not a dress. One of my favorite lines is from a hip song, no dress rehearsal. This is our life. And I love that you're just grabbing it by the tail and you're not slowing down. And your 14th album, you've got another one coming out. You have the memoirs, you're touring. And we love it. People still want to see you as much as ever,
that's a nice thing.
Yeah, the longevity that you've had. And, and then something else that I'd like people to know too, is that you have an Ask Lee on Instagram.
Oh yeah.
And you still have that. Guys, you can send your questions to Ask Lee at leeaaron.com and then catch her on Instagram on Tuesdays where Lee will answer them. And what time does that come on, Lee?
It's different times. I usually try to get it out by the early afternoon. It sort of depends on circumstances in my life at the time. I was filming several of them in a row at one point in time, but I realized what was happening is they weren't timely. Because, do you know what I mean? Because sometimes I would film something a few weeks before it actually came out. So I'm trying to do them on a weekly basis now. So depending on what's going on in my life, some mornings I've had a lot of interviews before I could get to Ask Lee. So it comes a little bit later. But yeah, I wanted to show you something. You were talking about my daughter. My daughter got me a day planner a couple of years ago. And while the day planner is no longer valid because it ended in 2019, I ripped off the cover of it because I loved it so much. The message that I like to feel that I've been giving her throughout her life. And then I think it's just a positive for women in general. I don't know if you can read that.
I sure can. Some women fear the fire. Some women simply become it. I love it.
And I love that. And I ripped off the cover and I keep it in my desk drawer, which is right here, as a reminder on days when I'm feeling a little beat down by life. I'm like, okay, this is what my child is. This is the way I want to inspire my child. And I have inspired my child. I have to continue. Right. And, we're all creators of our own realities. So
100%.
I think we have to do that. So, yeah.
So do your kids think you're a rock star or do they just think of you as mom? Are they blown away by what you do, or is it just kind of like, yeah, mom's at work, business as usual?
Yeah, I think when they've grown up in a sort of environment with musicians coming and going, rehearsals and things going on in our life, I think the greatest message I've given them is just they go, well, it's just my mom's job. Like rock stars are real people, and there's a humanity about this profession, and you can either, don't get me wrong, not all rock stars are the same as me. But I say this quite frequently. If you believe all the great things that people say about you, all your own hype, you're going to have an ego that's out of control. But if you believe all the negative things, because I've been torn down a lot in the media as well, if you believe all the negative things people say about you, you're going to be clinically depressed as well. So the reality is somewhere in the middle, right?
I agree.
And it keeps me humble and it keeps me moving forward. I always feel I can write a better song. I always feel I can give more, be a better person. And, whenever I'm feeling a little too high on my horse, my children can knock me down a notch.
They have that ability.
Our daughter is 17 and she now has a boyfriend, and she had him for dinner the night we got back from being in Newfoundland. And I'm like, can't you do this on a different night? I'm exhausted. And she's like, no, he can only come tonight, Mom. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going out and buying some steaks and make it. But her big concern was that we didn't embarrass her at the dinner. That her parents,
that's normal. That's such normal teenage stuff. I was like, God, I hope my mom doesn't embarrass me. My mom is Aaron.
No talking about your music and no talking about being a rock star. Like, don't embarrass me, Mom. So that's pretty humbling, leveling, right?
That'll level the old pride, eh? So how did it go? How did it go? Did you talk about your music? Do we like this boy? Is he mom approved?
Well, I don't want to go on to, in case she ever sees it,
That's
she's
a good question. Asking it
about
on the
this.
air.
He's lovely, and I feel, and he's very, very creative and very well spoken. So we feel very, very, very lucky right now that she seems to be dating someone very decent.
Right,
Yeah,
that's all we want for our kids, right?
yeah,
Someone that's going to
totally.
treat them right. And Lee, we're getting some cool comments here from a couple of friends of mine. Actually, Kevin Vizina, who actually I just watched perform last night, is referring to the cover of the book that we just read, and he says that would be a great line and a great song. He's got a good point there
Oh,
about the
yeah.
fire.
Well, you know what?
Right,
Well,
right.
I have a line. It's funny. I'm just looking at that. I have a line in one of my new songs. It's about to be recorded called I'm breathing in. It's called I'm Still Alive. And it says I'm breathing in and I'm breathing out fire tonight. So
that would work. That line would work with the other line in a song.
yeah.
Good stuff. And also,
Awesome.
my good friend Bernie Aubin, and a good friend of yours too, is saying about you, Lee. Hi, Bernie. How you doing,
Hi,
buddy?
Bernie.
Bernie, of course, is the headpins drummer and the president of Canadian Classic Talent. He says that Lee, you are his favorite female artist, singer, songwriter, and human being. Right?
I'm not worthy, Mr. Bernie. Thank you.
What a great comment. I'm looking forward actually to seeing Bernie at Rock the River in Saskatoon next weekend. So, and Riney Horn, a good friend of mine, Riney Horn, says another great interview with another great Canadian artist.
Oh,
Thanks,
you.
Bernie,
Thank you, Randy.
Yeah. So, Lee, I just can't thank you enough for coming down and joining us again for your second appearance. You are delightful. You're welcome here anytime, my friend. Anytime.
Anytime. Well, you're a blessing to the Canadian music industry, Kelly, and especially the whole Alberta scene. It's wonderful that you're continuing to do this and to providing a space for Canadian artists to come on and talk about their stuff. That's awesome.
Right. It's my pleasure. And I sure hope when your memoirs come out that you will come back with the book. Is that a date?
Awesome. Then yeah, absolutely. I would love to. Yeah.
Sounds like
let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. Lee, I just want to say on behalf of all of your fans, we love you. You're beautiful inside and out. And we can't wait to see what's coming next from you. We want to thank you for your contribution to the Canadian music industry. That's still happening. And we just wish you continued success. We just love you.
Oh, thank you, Kelly.
Thanks.
We'll talk soon. All right.
Take care.
Bless you. Bye.
God bless, Lee. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning into that awesome interview with Lee Aaron. Until we see you next week, stay safe. Be really nice to each other. Bye-bye.